I never thought the woman I'd loved for 8 years would destroy everything we built with two simple words. Special surprise. What she gave me that night changed both our lives forever, but what I gave her back, that was the real surprise she'll never forget. If you're enjoying this already, smash like, subscribe, and most importantly, give this video a hype. And I want to know, where are you watching from? Drop your city or country down in the comments. I love seeing how far these stories travel. The morning of our 8th wedding anniversary started like something out of a fairy tale. I woke up to Emma humming in the shower, her voice echoing off the marble tiles in that beautiful way that had made me fall in love with her voice first during a karaoke night all those years ago. "Morning, gorgeous," I called out, stretching in our king-size bed, the Egyptian cotton sheets she'd insisted we needed still warm from her body. "Don't come in here," she laughed, her voice playful and mysterious. "I'm planning something special for tonight. You need to trust me on this one, okay? Trust her. If only I'd known how those words would haunt me later." I rolled out of bed and padded to the bathroom door, pressing my palm against the cool wood. "Come on, give me a hint. It's our anniversary too, you know." "Absolutely not." The water shut off and I could hear her moving around. "Here's what's going to happen, Michael. You're going to go to work like normal, but don't come home until after 8 tonight. I need time to set everything up perfectly." 8? That's pretty late for... "Michael." Her voice carried that playful warning tone I knew so well. "Do you trust me or not?" I smiled despite my curiosity. "Of course I trust you, Em. You know I do." "Good. Then 8 o'clock, not a minute sooner. Promise me." "I promise." The bathroom door opened, and she emerged wrapped in her favorite silk robe, the emerald green one that made her eyes look like precious stones. Her dark hair was twisted up in a towel, and her skin was flushed pink from the hot shower. Even after 8 years, the sight of her still made my chest tight with affection. She walked over and kissed me softly, her lips warm and slightly damp. "Happy anniversary, husband." "Happy anniversary, wife." She pulled back, studying my face with those green eyes. "You're going to love what I have planned. I've been working on this for weeks." The rest of the morning was a blur of coffee, toast, and Emma flitting around the house like an excited child. She kept checking her phone, making hushed calls, and shooing me away whenever I tried to peek at what she was doing. "Go to work," she finally said, practically pushing me toward the door. "And remember, 8 o'clock. I grabbed my briefcase and keys, but turned back at the last second. "Em, whatever you're planning, you know I'd be happy just ordering pizza and watching Netflix with you, right?" Her expression softened. "I know, baby. But this is special. This is going to be a night we'll remember for the rest of our lives." She was right about that, though not in the way either of us expected. Work dragged by with the peculiar slowness that only comes when you're anticipating something wonderful. I spent most of the day distracted, checking my watch, thinking about what surprise Emma might have planned. Dinner reservations at our favorite restaurant? A surprise party with friends? Maybe she'd finally agreed to the weekend getaway to Napa I'd been suggesting for months. Around lunch, I ducked out to Tiffany & Company and bought her the diamond tennis bracelet she'd been admiring in their window display for weeks. It cost more than my monthly salary, but seeing her face light up would be worth every penny. "Special occasion?" the sales associate asked as she wrapped the small blue box in their signature white ribbon. "8th wedding anniversary," I said proudly. "How wonderful. She's a lucky woman." I'm the lucky one. By 5:30, I was practically vibrating with anticipation. I tried to kill time at the office, but finally gave up and decided to stop by the flower shop on 5th Street. If Emma was going all out for our anniversary, I wanted to match her energy. "What kind of surprise are we talking about here?" asked Rosa, the shop owner who'd been arranging flowers for my wife for years. "Romantic dinner? Weekend getaway?" "I honestly don't know," I admitted, inhaling the sweet fragrance of the white roses I'd selected, Emma's favorites. She's been secretive about it all day. "All I know is I'm supposed to be home at 8 on the dot." Rosa smiled knowingly. Sounds like someone's planned something very special indeed. I picked up a bottle of Emma's favorite wine, a 2018 Chateau Margaux that cost more than most people spend on groceries in a month, and a card from the little shop next door. Inside, I wrote, "To my beautiful wife on our 8th anniversary. Thank you for 8 years of laughter, love, and surprises. Here's to 80 more. All my love, Michael." By 7:15, I was parked outside our brownstone in Brooklyn Heights, watching the windows of our home glow warm and golden in the evening light. I could see movement inside, shadows passing by the curtains, and my heart did a little skip of excitement. At exactly 8 o'clock, I walked up our front steps, flowers in one hand, wine and gifts in the other, practically bouncing on my toes with anticipation. I slid my key into the lock as quietly as possible, not wanting to ruin whatever surprise Emma had prepared. The house smelled different. Candles, maybe? Something floral and exotic that I couldn't identify. "Em?" I called softly. "I'm home." No response. I set the wine and gifts on the hall table and started up the stairs toward our bedroom, the wooden steps creaking slightly under my weight. That's when I heard it. A sound that made my blood freeze in my veins. Laughter. Low, intimate laughter that definitely wasn't coming from a TV or radio. A man's laughter. My hand tightened on the flower stems as I reached the top of the stairs. Our bedroom door was slightly ajar, warm light spilling out into the hallway. The sounds were clearer now. Voices, movement, the unmistakable rhythm of intimacy. I should have turned around. I should have walked away, given them a chance to explain, demanded answers, screamed, fought, thrown things. Instead, I found myself moving forward like a man in a trance, my feet carrying me toward a truth I wasn't ready to face. I pushed the door open just wide enough to see inside. Emma was there, in our bed, wrapped around a man I recognized immediately. Derek Morrison, her work colleague who'd been coming to our dinner parties for the past 6 months. The same Derek who'd been texting her at all hours, who she'd been having those mysterious work meetings with, who'd somehow become the third wheel in conversations that used to be just between my wife and me. They were so lost in each other that they didn't notice me at first. Emma's head was thrown back, her dark hair spilling across our pillows, the same pillows where I'd whispered good morning to her just 12 hours earlier. It was Derek who saw me first. His eyes went wide and he froze mid-motion. "Oh, shit." Emma turned toward the door, following his gaze, and the expression on her face when she saw me standing there will be burned into my memory forever. Shock, guilt, fear, and something else. Something that looked almost like relief. "Michael." Her voice was barely a whisper. This isn't what it looks like." I stood there for what felt like an eternity, the white roses still clutched in my hand, taking in every detail of the scene before me. The rumpled sheets, the scattered clothes on the floor, the wine glasses on the nightstand, the same crystal glasses I'd given her for our 3rd anniversary. Derek was scrambling for his clothes, his face flushed red with embarrassment and panic. "Look, man, I can explain." I held up my hand, and he fell silent. "Happy anniversary, Emma," I said quietly, my voice surprisingly steady. Then I turned and walked away. "Michael, wait!" I heard her call behind me, heard the sound of her feet hitting the floor, but I didn't stop walking. I made it to the front door before she caught up with me, wrapped in a sheet, her hair wild and her eyes desperate. "Please, let me explain. It's not what you think." "It's exactly what I think," I said, still unnaturally calm. "You promised me a special surprise for our anniversary." "Well, congratulations, Em. Mission accomplished." I dropped the white roses on the floor at her feet and walked out into the night. I didn't scream. I didn't fight. I didn't beg for explanations or throw accusations. I vanished. The Marriott on Atlantic Avenue had the kind of anonymous, sterile atmosphere that suited my mood perfectly. I checked in under my middle name, James, and paid cash for a week-long stay in a room on the 14th floor with a view of the harbor. "Any luggage, sir?" the desk clerk asked. "Not tonight. I'll have some things delivered tomorrow." My phone had been buzzing non-stop since I'd left the house. Calls from Emma, texts that grew increasingly frantic as the hours passed. At midnight, I turned it off completely and removed the SIM card, dropping the tiny piece of plastic into the hotel toilet and watching it disappear with a satisfying flush. I sat on the edge of the hotel bed, still wearing the same clothes I'd put on that morning when I'd been a happily married man, and began making a list in the hotel notepad. Bank accounts, credit cards, insurance policies, social media, work contacts, mutual friends. Everything would have to be handled methodically, carefully, with the same attention to detail I brought to my work as a forensic accountant. If Emma wanted surprises, I'd give her surprises. The first call I made was to our bank at 6 a.m. as soon as they opened. First National, this is Jennifer speaking. How can I help you today? This is Michael Harrison. I need to report suspicious activity on my joint accounts. I'm sorry to hear that, Mr. Harrison. Can you provide me with your account numbers and security information? I'd memorized every account number, every password, every security question years ago. It was second nature for someone in my profession. I believe my wife may be making unauthorized purchases. I need to freeze all joint accounts immediately and transfer my portion of the funds to a new individual account. Of course, sir. I'll need to verify your identity and have you speak with a supervisor, but we can certainly help you protect your assets. The process took 3 hours, but by the time I hung up, Emma's access to our joint checking, savings, and credit accounts had been completely severed. Every shared financial tie between us was cut as cleanly as a surgeon's blade. Next, I called my office. Harrison Forensic Accounting, this is Sandra. Sandra, it's Michael. I need to speak with Tom immediately. My business partner came on the line within seconds. Mike, thank God. Emma's been calling here nonstop since last night. She says you've disappeared and she's worried sick. What the hell is going on? I need to take an extended leave of absence. Family emergency. What kind of family emergency? Is everything okay? No, everything is not okay. But I can't discuss the details right now. I need you to handle all my current cases and redirect any calls from Emma to voicemail. If anyone asks, tell them I'm dealing with a medical situation and will be unreachable for the foreseeable future. Tom was quiet for a long moment. Mike, you're scaring me. Talk to me. What happened? I found my wife in bed with another man on our anniversary. Now I need some time to figure out my next moves. Jesus Christ, Mike, I'm so sorry. Do you need anything? Money? A place to stay? Legal representation? I need silence, Tom. Complete radio silence. Can you do that for me? Of course. Whatever you need. The next step required a trip to Manhattan. I took the subway to Midtown and walked into the offices of Steinberg, Williams, and Associates, the nastiest divorce attorneys in New York City. Mr. Harrison, said Janet Williams, a sharp-featured woman in her 50s who had a reputation for leaving opposing parties financially and emotionally devastated. I understand you have a situation that requires immediate attention. My wife has been having an affair. I want to file for divorce, but I need to ensure that I protect all my assets and gather evidence of her infidelity first. Smart man. Too many people come to me after they've already made emotional mistakes that hurt their cases. Tell me about your financial situation, your living arrangements, and what evidence you have of the affair. I spent 2 hours detailing every aspect of my marriage, my business, our shared assets, and what I'd witnessed the night before. Janet took notes on a legal pad, occasionally asking pointed questions about Emma's employment, her spending habits, and her relationship with Derek. Here's what we're going to do, she said finally. First, we file the divorce papers but don't serve them yet. That gives us time to gather evidence and protect your assets without tipping her off to the full extent of your knowledge. Second, I'm going to put you in touch with a private investigator who can document this affair properly. Third, we're going to look very carefully at her recent financial activity and see if there's been any unauthorized use of marital assets to fund this relationship. How long will this take? If we do it right, 6 weeks minimum. If we rush it, she could end up with half of everything you've worked for, plus alimony, plus a sympathetic judge who thinks you're just another vindictive husband. Patience, Mr. Harrison. Revenge is a dish best served cold. I left her office with a folder full of paperwork, the contact information for a private investigator, and a growing sense of purpose. For the first time since I'd walked out of my house, I felt like I was taking control of the situation instead of just reacting to it. Back at the hotel, I opened my laptop and began the delicate process of disappearing from Emma's digital world. I changed all my passwords, deleted our shared photo albums from the cloud, and blocked her on every social media platform we'd been connected on. Then I started shopping. By midnight, I'd ordered everything I would need for the next phase of my plan. A set of wireless security cameras, audio recording equipment, a high-quality printer, several prepaid cell phones, and a few other items that would become crucial later. My phone, the new prepaid phone I'd bought that afternoon, buzzed with a text message from an unknown number. "Michael, it's Tom. Emma came to the office today. She's been crying for hours, says you won't answer her calls. She looks terrible, man. Maybe you should talk to her? At least let her explain?" I stared at the message for a long time before typing back. She had 8 years to explain. She chose to explain herself to Derek instead. "I'm done talking." "Mike, come on. People make mistakes. Maybe there's more to this than—" I turned off the phone before he could finish. Through my hotel window, I could see the lights of Brooklyn Heights twinkling in the distance, including the warm glow from the windows of what used to be my home. I wondered if Emma was lying in our bed alone tonight, or if Derek was still there, helping her figure out damage control. Either way, she was about to learn that some surprises take time to fully unwrap. Day 3 of my disappearance brought the first signs that Emma was beginning to panic. I knew this because I'd had the private investigator, a former NYPD detective named Maria Santos, watching the house since Tuesday morning. Her first report arrived via encrypted email at noon. Subject appears distressed. Has left the residence multiple times to check mail, look up and down the street. Attempted to start her Lexus at 10:30 a.m., but appeared unable to do so, possibly no gas or car troubles. Returned inside and remained there for remainder of morning. Secondary subject, Derek Morrison, departed the residence at 7:45 a.m. and has not returned. Photographed subject attempting to use credit cards at corner market. Transaction appeared to be declined based on her reaction and body language. I smiled as I read the report. Emma was discovering the first consequences of her special surprise. My phone rang. The hotel landline, which was odd since I hadn't given anyone that number. "Mr. James? This is the front desk. We have a woman here who says she's your wife and she's very upset. She's demanding to see you." My grip tightened on the receiver. "What does she look like?" "Dark hair, green eyes, wearing a blue dress. She says her name is Emma Harrison and that you're in danger of hurting yourself. She's quite emotional, sir. I don't know anyone by that name. Please ask her to leave the property." "Sir, she's insisting." "I said I don't know her. If she continues to disturb other guests, call security." I hung up and moved to the window. 14 floors below, I could see Emma's figure on the sidewalk, looking up at the hotel with what I assumed was desperation. She stood there for nearly an hour before finally walking away. That evening, I decided it was time for the next phase. I'd spent the day researching Derek Morrison's business, a high-end auto dealership in Manhattan that specialized in luxury imports. What I found was interesting. Inconsistent financial reports, customer complaints about overcharging, and several online reviews mentioning hidden fees and bait-and-switch tactics. But more interesting were the public tax records that showed a significant discrepancy between his reported income and his lifestyle. For a man who claimed to make $120,000 a year, Derek lived awfully well. Manhattan apartment, expensive cars, frequent trips to Europe with my wife, apparently. I opened my laptop and began typing a detailed anonymous report to the IRS. "I am writing to report suspected tax evasion by Derek Morrison, owner of Morrison Luxury Imports. Tax ID 47-XXXXXXXX. Based on public records and personal observation, Mr. Morrison appears to be underreporting his income by significant amounts. He maintains a lifestyle inconsistent with his filed tax returns, including..." It took me 2 hours to compile all the evidence I'd gathered, cross-reference it with his social media posts showing expensive purchases and trips, and present it in a format that would trigger an immediate audit. I hit submit at 11:47 p.m. and felt a deep sense of satisfaction wash over me. But that was just the appetizer. The main course required more preparation. Day 4 brought another report from Maria Santos. Subject Emma Harrison appears to be in significant distress, Observed her speaking with neighbors, showing them a photograph, presumably of you. Mrs. Chen from next door shook her head and went back inside. Subject spent approximately 2 hours at the 78th precinct, likely filing a missing person report. Exited appearing frustrated. Stopped at 3 different hotels in the area showing photograph to staff. Additionally, subject's Uber account appears to be non-functional. Observed her attempting to call multiple taxi services. Phone service also appears disrupted. Witnessed her shaking her phone and attempting to make calls with no success. Secondary subject Derek Morrison visited the residence briefly at 2:30 p.m., but left after 15 minutes appearing agitated. Emma was learning that when you betray someone who manages financial systems for a living, the consequences tend to be thorough and far-reaching. I'd spent Tuesday afternoon making carefully placed phone calls to various service providers, armed with the security questions and account information that only a spouse would know. Her phone service was suspended due to suspicious activity. Her Uber account was locked pending investigation of fraudulent charges. Charges I'd made from my hotel room, then disputed. Her Netflix, Spotify, and Amazon accounts were all temporarily suspended for various technical reasons. Death by 1,000 tiny cuts. That evening, I made one more crucial call. Morrison Luxury Imports. Derek speaking. I deepened my voice slightly and adopted the clipped official tone I'd perfected during years of dealing with financial investigations. Mr. Morrison, this is Agent Johnson from the Internal Revenue Service. We're conducting a preliminary review of your business filings for the past 3 years and need to schedule an appointment to discuss some discrepancies we've found. There was a long pause. I'm sorry, what kind of discrepancies? I'm not at liberty to discuss details over the phone, sir. However, I can tell you that we take underreporting of income very seriously. Can you come in tomorrow morning at 9 a.m.? Federal Building, downtown Manhattan, Suite 1205. Tomorrow? I have appointments tomorrow. Can we reschedule for... Sir, this is not optional. We have evidence of significant unreported income that needs to be addressed immediately. Failure to appear could result in additional penalties and possible criminal charges. I could hear Derek's breathing getting faster. What evidence? I file my taxes correctly every year. Suite 1205, 9 a.m., Mr. Morrison. Bring all financial records for Morrison Luxury Imports from 2021 to present. Have a good evening. I hung up before he could respond and immediately called Emma's work number, the direct line to her desk at the marketing firm where she'd worked for the past 4 years. Hartwell and Associates. This is Emma. Hearing her voice after 4 days of silence hit me harder than I'd expected, but I pushed through it. Ms. Harrison, this is HR from corporate headquarters. We've received some concerning reports about your recent behavior and need to schedule a meeting to discuss your employment status. What? Who is this? What reports? There have been allegations of inappropriate relationships with clients, misuse of company resources, and possible embezzlement. Can you come in Friday morning at 8 a.m. for a disciplinary review? This is insane. I don't know who this is, but I'm calling my supervisor right now. Ms. Harrison, I strongly advise against making this situation worse by involving additional parties. Friday morning, 8 a.m. Bring your company laptop and any files you may have taken home. I ended the call and sat back, feeling the first real satisfaction I'd experienced since Tuesday night. On Friday morning, I sent Emma her first real surprise. The package was delivered by courier at exactly 9 a.m. I knew because Maria Santos was watching the house and reported the delivery in real time. Inside the small box, Emma found 3 items. A Polaroid photograph of me, taken that morning in my hotel room, smiling directly at the camera. A single white rose, perfectly preserved. And a note in my handwriting. Happy anniversary, darling. I hope the surprise was worth it. There's more where this came from. Your loving husband. According to Maria's report, Emma stared at the contents of the box for nearly 5 minutes before sinking onto the front steps and crying. But I wasn't finished yet. Not even close. 1 week after discovering my wife's special surprise, I was ready to deliver my own. The second package was larger than the first. A medium-sized box that required Emma's signature upon delivery. I watched from across the street wearing sunglasses and a baseball cap as she signed for it with shaking hands. Inside, she would find the pieces of a puzzle that would reveal the true scope of what was about to happen to her life. Item 1. A USB drive containing 47 video files. Item 2. A leather-bound journal filled with pages of my handwriting. Item 3. Legal documents in a manila envelope. Item 4. A second Polaroid, this one showing Derek's car parked outside our house at 2:30 a.m. 3 weeks earlier. A visit I'd documented but never confronted her about. The USB drive was my masterpiece. For the past month, I'd been installing tiny wireless cameras throughout our house. Devices so small they looked like electrical outlet screws or smoke detector components. Emma, who barely noticed when I hung new pictures on the walls, never suspected that her husband was documenting her affair in a high definition. The videos showed everything. Every secret phone call Derek had made from our kitchen. Every time he'd spent the night when I was supposedly working late. Every kiss, every intimate moment, every conversation where they'd planned their future together and discussed what to do about the Michael problem. But the most damning footage was from 5 days ago. After I'd disappeared. He knows, Emma's voice said clearly through my laptop speakers as I reviewed the footage. He has to know. Why else would he just vanish like that? Derek was pacing around our bedroom, the same bedroom where I'd found them together. Maybe he's just processing it, giving you space to figure out what you want. You don't understand Michael. He doesn't give people space. He solves problems. The fact that he's not here demanding answers means he's planning something. What kind of something? Emma sat on the edge of our bed, her head in her hands. I don't know. But he's a forensic accountant, Derek. He finds hidden things for a living. If he wants to destroy us, he'll know exactly how to do it. She was right about that. The journal was 87 pages of my careful observations, dating back 3 months. Every late night, Emma had claimed to be working. Every time she'd come home smelling like someone else's cologne. Every lie she'd told, and every excuse she'd made. March 15th. Emma said she was having drinks with Jennifer after work, but Jennifer posted photos from her book club at the same time. Emma's phone location showed her at the Ritz-Carlton downtown. March 22nd. Found a receipt in Emma's purse for dinner at Le Bernardin. $340 for 2 people. She told me she had a sandwich at her desk that night. April 3rd. Emma's dry cleaning bill included a men's shirt that isn't mine. Size large, expensive fabric. When I asked about it, she claimed it must have been mixed up with someone else's order. Page after page of careful documentation, building an ironclad case of systematic deception. But the legal documents were the real bombshell. Divorce papers, fully prepared and ready for filing. Financial statements showing the complete separation of our assets. A forensic accounting report, prepared by my own company, showing every penny Emma had spent on her affair. Hotels, dinners, gifts, trips, all funded by our joint accounts. The total came to $23,847 over 6 months. And at the bottom of the stack, a preliminary custody agreement for Einstein, our golden retriever, the one child we'd had together. But the final item in the package was a forged resignation letter from her company, already delivered to her boss. My phone buzzed. Subject opened package at 11:47 a.m. Visible distress. Currently sitting on front steps, crying. That evening, Derek Morrison was arrested. The IRS investigation had uncovered not just tax evasion, but a sophisticated car theft operation. Derek was looking at 20 years in federal prison. The news broke at 11 p.m. I watched from my hotel as reporters explained how the respected businessman had been running a criminal enterprise. Emma called the hotel again, desperate. I watched her from my window, clutching the package contents. Tell her I still don't know who she is, I told the desk clerk. Tomorrow would bring the final surprise. The final package arrived exactly 2 weeks after our anniversary. I hand-delivered this one myself. I stood on our front steps wearing a charcoal suit, carrying a briefcase. Emma answered looking like a ghost, stained sweatpants, unwashed hair, puffy eyes. Hello, Emma. Michael. Her voice was barely a whisper. Where have you been? Taking care of business. I held out a small box. One more anniversary gift. Inside was a single house key. I don't understand. It's yours now. The house, completely yours. Her eyes lit up with hope, along with the $1.4 million in debt I attached to it. Congratulations, you're now the sole owner of an underwater property. The hope died instantly. You can't do this. Actually, I can. Since you committed adultery, I keep all marital assets. Since you're unemployed, the judge let you have the house. I pulled out divorce papers. You have 30 days to respond. Derek won't be available to help. Something about federal prison. Emma collapsed onto the steps. Derek was arrested? Arrested, convicted, sentenced. Turns out he wasn't just cheating taxes. He was running a car theft operation. I just gave the authorities a reason to look and he buried himself. I sat beside her. You want to know the funny part? I only reported his tax issues. Everything else was all Derek. She was crying silently. Why destroy everything like this? You destroyed everything, Emma. I just documented it. I handed her a final envelope. These are copies of every video, every photo, every piece of evidence. Your family has copies. Derek's family has copies. Your former employer has copies. I stood up, smoothing my tie. You asked me to trust you on our anniversary morning. I said yes because I loved you, but you didn't ask because you loved me. You asked because you needed me out so you could fuck Derek in our bed. That's the difference between us. She flinched. When I said I trusted you, I meant it. When you said you loved me, you were lying. Michael, please, don't. You had 8 years to be honest. You chose deception instead. I walked toward a waiting sedan. What am I supposed to do? She called desperately. I lost my job. Derek's in prison. The house is underwater, and I have nothing. I paused, looking back one final time. You wanted a special surprise, Emma. You got one. I climbed into the car. Airport. As we drove away, I saw Emma in the mirror, still holding the envelope full of evidence of her own destruction. 3 hours later, I was on a plane to San Francisco and my new job. Double the salary, signing bonus enough to start over completely. As the plane lifted off, I typed an email to Tom. By the time you read this, I'll be in California. Some betrayals are too fundamental to forgive. Emma made her choice when she decided to celebrate our anniversary in bed with another man. Derek made his choice when he built his life on fraud. I simply made sure they both lived with the consequences. Don't contact me unless it's an emergency. I'm not angry, but I'm done with that chapter forever. Somewhere over Ohio, I thought about Emma one last time. Alone in that house, surrounded by the wreckage of the life she'd thrown away. Part of me felt sorry for her, but mostly, I felt satisfied. Champagne, please, I told the flight attendant. The good stuff. Celebrating something special? My anniversary, 8 years of marriage, officially ending today. I'm sorry about your divorce. Don't be. Some endings are better than the alternatives. The real surprise wasn't what I'd done to her. The real surprise was discovering I was capable of such calculated revenge. The real surprise was learning that when someone destroys your trust, you don't have to destroy yourself trying to forgive them. Emma had promised me a special surprise for our anniversary. I'd return the favor, and unlike her surprise, mine would last a lifetime. She wanted a surprise. I gave her one she'll never forget. Happy anniversary. The end character count. 38,924 for entire weekends while she was with Derek. But the final item in the package was the one that would hurt her the most. A letter of resignation from Hartwell and Associates, written on official company letterhead and signed with a perfect forgery of Emma's signature. The letter cited personal misconduct and violation of company ethics policies as the reasons for her immediate departure. I'd had it delivered to her supervisor's desk that morning, approximately 1 hour before Emma would open her package and realize what had happened. By the time she called her office in a panic, trying to explain that she hadn't resigned, the HR department would have already begun processing her termination paperwork. My phone buzzed with a text from Maria Santos. Subject opened package at 11:47 a.m. Visible distress. Spent 23 minutes on phone. Appeared to be making multiple calls. At 12:15, subject threw phone against front door hard enough to shatter screen. Currently sitting on front steps, crying. I felt a momentary pang of guilt, but it passed quickly. Emma had made her choices. Now she was living with the consequences. That evening, Derek Morrison was arrested. The IRS investigation I'd triggered had moved faster than I'd expected. When federal agents searched his dealership, they found exactly what I'd suspected: a sophisticated scheme to underreport income, avoid taxes, and hide assets in offshore accounts. But they found something else too. Something I hadn't known about, but that made Derek's situation infinitely worse. He'd been defrauding his customers, selling them cars with hidden liens and forged titles. 3 of his luxury imports were actually stolen vehicles with altered VIN numbers. What had started as a tax evasion case was now federal fraud, money laundering, and interstate transportation of stolen property. Derek Morrison was looking at 20 years in federal prison. The news broke on the local stations at 11 p.m. I watched from my hotel room as reporters stood outside Morrison Luxury Imports, explaining how the respected businessman had been running a criminal enterprise for at least 2 years. My phone rang at 11:47 p.m. Hotel landline again. Mr. James, this is the front desk. The same woman from earlier this week is here again. She's in much worse condition this time, sir. She's asking to see you, and she says it's an emergency. I looked out my window and saw Emma on the sidewalk below, still wearing the same clothes from earlier that day. Her hair was disheveled, her face streaked with tears, and she was clutching what looked like the contents of my package against her chest. Tell her I still don't know who she is. Sir, she's saying her husband is in this hotel and that she needs to speak with him about some legal documents. She seems quite desperate. I watched Emma sink onto a bench across from the hotel entrance, her shoulders shaking with sobs. Call the police if she doesn't leave the property within the next 10 minutes. I hung up and closed the curtains, but I could still picture her out there, finally understanding the full scope of what her special surprise had cost both of us. Tomorrow, I would send her the final package, the one that would end this chapter of our lives forever. The final package arrived on a Tuesday morning, exactly 2 weeks after our anniversary. I hand-delivered this one myself. I stood on the front steps of what used to be our home, wearing a charcoal suit and carrying a briefcase like I was heading to any other business meeting. The only difference was the small wrapped box in my left hand. Emma answered the door looking like a ghost of herself. The woman who had once been so vain about her appearance that she wouldn't take out the trash without lipstick was now wearing stained sweatpants and an old college t-shirt. Her hair hung limp and unwashed, and her green eyes were puffy from crying. "Hello, Emma." She stared at me for a long moment, her mouth opening and closing like she couldn't find words. "Michael." Her voice was barely a whisper. "Where have you been?" "Taking care of business." I held out the small box. "I have one more anniversary gift for you." She took the box with trembling hands, her eyes never leaving my face. "Michael, please let me explain." "Open it." Inside the box was a single item, the key to our house. "I don't understand," she said, looking up at me with confusion. "It's yours now." "The house, I mean. Completely yours." For a moment, hope flickered in her eyes. Along with the mortgage payments, the property taxes, the maintenance costs, and the home equity loan you don't know about. The one I took out last month to pay for my legal fees. I smiled. "Congratulations, Em. You're now the sole owner of a $1.2 million property with $1.4 million in debt attached to it." The hope died in her eyes, replaced by understanding and horror. "You can't do this." "Actually, I can. My lawyers were very thorough. Since you committed adultery, I'm entitled to keep all marital assets acquired through my income. Since the house was purchased primarily with my earnings, and since you've now been unemployed for a week, The judge was happy to let you have it. I opened my briefcase and pulled out a thick stack of papers. These are the final divorce documents. You have 30 days to respond, but I should mention that your boyfriend won't be available to help you with legal advice. Something about federal prison. Emma's legs gave out, and she sank onto the front steps. Derek was arrested? Derek was arrested, charged, convicted, and sentenced. Turns out he wasn't just cheating on his taxes. He was running a pretty sophisticated car theft operation. The FBI found some very interesting evidence when they raided his dealership. I sat down beside her, close enough that I could smell the familiar scent of her shampoo mixed with the stale odor of someone who hadn't showered in days. You want to know the funny part, Em? I actually planted evidence that led to his tax audit, but everything else, the stolen cars, the money laundering, the fraud, that was all Derek. I just gave the authorities a reason to look closely at him, and he buried himself. She was crying now, silent tears streaming down her face. Why? She whispered. Why destroy everything like this? I turned to face her fully, studying the woman I'd once loved more than my own life. You destroyed everything, Emma. I just documented it. I reached into my briefcase again and pulled out one final item, a thick manila envelope. These are copies of every video, every photograph, every financial record, and every piece of evidence I've collected over the past 2 weeks. Your family has copies. Derek's family has copies. Your former employer has copies. And if you ever try to contact me again, or if you ever claim that I was abusive or unfaithful, these documents will be sent to every person in your social media contacts list. Emma's hands shook as she took the envelope. I want you to remember something, I said, standing up and smoothing my tie. You asked me to trust you. You looked me in the eye on our anniversary morning and asked if I trusted you. I said yes because I loved you, and I thought that love was mutual. I paused, letting the words hang between us. But you didn't ask me to trust you because you loved me, Emma. You asked me to trust you because you needed me out of the house so you could fuck Derek in our bed on our anniversary. That's the difference between us. When I said I trusted you, I meant it. When you said you loved me, you were lying. She flinched as if I'd slapped her. Michael, please. Don't. My voice was sharp enough to cut glass. Don't say my name. Don't apologize. Don't try to explain. You had 8 years to be honest with me. You chose deception instead. I picked up my briefcase and started walking toward the street, where a black sedan was waiting to take me to the airport. Where are you going? She called after me. Does it matter? You made it very clear that you don't want to be married to me. I never said that. I stopped and turned back one final time. You didn't have to say it, Emma. You showed me. The sedan door was already open, the driver waiting patiently as I approached. Michael! Emma's voice was desperate now, filled with a panic I'd never heard before. What am I supposed to do? I lost my job, Derek's in prison, the house is underwater financially, and I have nothing. I paused with one foot in the car and looked back at her one last time. She was standing in the doorway of our house, her house now, looking small and broken and utterly defeated. You wanted a special surprise, Emma. You got one. I climbed into the sedan and closed the door. Airport, sir? The driver asked. Airport. As we pulled away from the curb, I saw Emma in the side mirror, still standing in the doorway, still holding the envelope full of evidence of her own destruction. My phone buzzed with a text message from Maria Santos. Final report. Subject Derek Morrison sentenced to 18 years federal prison. Subject Emma Harrison officially terminated from Hartwell and Associates for gross misconduct. House scheduled for foreclosure proceedings to begin in 60 days unless full payment made on equity loan. Case closed per your instructions. Invoice to follow. I deleted the message and leaned back in the leather seat, watching the familiar streets of Brooklyn Heights disappear behind us. 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 Behind us.